prolific Pittsburgh playwright. How's that sound?
That's hard to say. Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, but you can write that down. You can use that. Royalty free. How's that?
Thank you.
We are here in your lovely home. Thank you for having me as a guest. You know, what our viewers don't know is that I had to fib to you and tell you I was doing a feature for Town and Country magazine to get in here. Really, I just wanted to see Tammy Ryan's house. And it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I was hoping, though, for, something dimly lit, just manuscripts stacked up to the ceiling, one little candle. But
that's upstairs.
Oh, okay, great. One thing that I've always been envious of writers, playwrights in particular, is that they can write anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's a job you can do from just about anywhere in the world. Right. So why Pittsburgh?
Right. Well, I'm from New York originally, and I met my husband, who is an air traffic controller.
Oh, wow.
Larry Mercurio. And I met him in Buffalo, where I was doing undergrad. And
now that kind of sounds like that could be a play.
He came to Pittsburgh. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I've written one play that had an air traffic controller in it, but it really wasn't about him.
Where did you possibly go to get the source material on that, though?
Yeah, I know it was. I tried to tell people that it wasn't about him, but then things would pop up, and I said, "Well, yeah, that was kind of true," and yeah, that was kind of true. But it was called Dark Part of the Forest, and I did it in 2000 at the Hamburg studio in City Theater.
Oh. So where does the Tammy Ryan story open then? Say Act 1, Scene 1, New York.
Mm-hmm. Astoria, Queens. I'm the oldest of 6 kids.
Wow.
The Ryans. My father was like a moving man. He worked in a warehouse for this company called Obies.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking maybe he was a dancer.
No.
What kind of moves we're talking about?
And he's alive. He's very charming. Liked his Budweiser, and so I grew up with, and I had a sort of large extended family in Queens, and we would have parties and family dinners and everybody talking at once and a lot of colorful characters, and so I developed an ear for dialogue.
There you go.
That way, so it was lucky I found theater to kind of put all that in there.
So it was meeting your husband, the air traffic controller, that brought you to Pittsburgh?
To Pittsburgh, right. So we met in Buffalo, and he was an air traffic controller there when we were looking for a city, to live in. And Pittsburgh had a great airport at the time. And so I followed him, and I applied to Carnegie Mellon at the same time and did my MFA there in playwriting. So the plan was really to leave, in a couple of years and go someplace where playwriting was sort of happening. At that time, Seattle was pretty big, or Minneapolis was another choice, or Chicago. But it was a good place for him, his job, and since he was the main, wage earner, we kind of hung around, and then we bought a house, and then we had kids, and then before you know it, I was here. But one of the good things about, at the time, it was kind of a desert here, theater-wise. I mean, certainly for new writing. But it seemed like a theater community kind of grew around me. And in the last 20 years, there's been, so many changes in Pittsburgh. It's really become, it's become this great place where people want to, a lot of artists are coming here.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people from Brooklyn. It's kind of nice for that, so.
And you've certainly been a part of it. I mean, I hear your name all the time. I see it on playbills quite often. So you are working a lot in Pittsburgh.
I've been busy. It's been a good place for me to write, and I have a lot of supporters here. And one of the best resources actually in Pittsburgh are the actors. So as a playwright, you can't do anything without actors.
What do you feel was your first great success as a playwright?
Probably my play Pig, which was done. I wrote it at CMU, and but I didn't really get a good response from it there. It's a little strange. I mean, I call it my dysfunctional family play. And I wrote a series of these dysfunctional family plays from Queens plays, and that Pig was the first one, and loosely based on events in with my family.
Now, did they ever come see these shows?
They did see Pig.
Oh, Morty, that's you! No, that's Larry.
Well, I tried to. It was done in New York, and it was done a couple times actually in New York. And one of them, my uncle was an actor, and he was. So he did a lot of like Law and Order and a lot of movies.
When you're an actor in New York, you do Law and Order, yeah.
So somehow this small theater company was going to do it, and they ended up casting him in the role of the father, who is based on my father. So
wow, that's cool.
I kept trying to tell them, this is not autobiography, this is fiction. And he kept telling them stories about my dad, who he adores and idolized, he's his older brother. And he would tell them, like, oh, Roger is a great guy, and, tell him, and I'm thinking, it's not about him, because the character of Jack is a little, he's a little dark. It's a black comedy. It's an Irish play in a way. Like, I didn't realize I was writing in the same spirit of people like Martin McDonagh and Conor McPherson maybe. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to them at all, but when I went to Ireland and saw my first Martin McDonagh play, I went, it was Lonesome West, and I said, oh, now I understand why my first impulse was to write plays like Pig. So they saw the play, and the actress came up to my mom and said, so how much of this is true? And she said, well, Roger quit smoking and the dog's name was Elmo.
And that's it.
That was all she said. I was like, you're not helping. Okay, that's it.
And after this, we go in a bit of a musical direction, don't we?
Right. So my new opera, a new kind of fallout, is going to have its world premiere at Summerfest at Opera Theater of Pittsburgh.
So this is the first time that you've written an opera?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
It's my first libretto. I didn't write the opera, it's the libretto.
Which is the words that are spoken rather than sung, is that correct?
It's all sung.
Okay,
so the libretto is like the story, the characters, and the words,
That get sung. Okay. Yeah. Now in an opera, they don't necessarily have to rhyme like a musical, do they?
No, not like a musical, but rhyme helps. And everything you sing, like, it takes 3 times longer to sing it than to say it.
Yes.
And so since I write a lot of plays, I have like the play time sort of built in me. Like, my plays usually run about 100 minutes, so a minute a page. I kind of know how long things are going to be, but I didn't have that sense with the opera. If I would have wrote a regular play, it would be like 8 hours long.
Yeah.
So I had to try to learn how to write a whole full-length story short. And I'm working with composer Gilda Lyons, who is, a fantastic composer, and she really helped me a lot because and she had a hand in we created the treatment together, and after I wrote the first draft, which was kind of a muted play, she took it and helped me shape it into like, okay, here you would have an aria, here would be the chorus, here would be an ensemble, here would be whatever. So sort of almost like paint by numbers kind of thing, which made it easy. So I learned a lot about it in that way. So I sort of had this sort of fake opera singing in my head when I would write it.
So that's an interesting process then. So how this new opera was built is that you wrote the words.
Yeah, right.
And then the composer looked at that and said, well, this is how it should sound to music.
Right. Also, like, English is not a great language for opera because there's not a lot of vowels. Compared to
it is a little jarring when I hear an English opera. Yeah. It's almost a little silly.
Yeah. Right.
And maybe it's just because it just seems more of a heightened art when it's in a language that I don't fluently understand. It could be that, but
right. Well, my opera singing daughter, she thinks singing in English is sometimes same thing you said, but but you have a choice to choose a word that has an open vowel versus one that has a closed vowel. Sometimes, so I tried to do that. It's inspired by Rachel Carson's book Silent Spring. It's not about Rachel Carson. Originally it was going to be, but the estate is very protective of her story and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I'm going to get sued if I try to write about Rachel Carson, because we couldn't get the rights. So I decided to write about the book Silent Spring, which if you don't know about it, it's a sort of scientific look at what pesticides and DDT in particular is doing to the environment. It's a scientific work, but it's also really beautifully written. She was also a wonderful writer.
World premiere this summer with Opera Theater Summerfest. Yeah. We're looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Now, what do you feel is the greatest compliment that somebody could possibly give you after having seen your work?
Well, people have said it to me, and I guess this is what sort of keeps you going when, because it's not all, martinis and tuxedos. But someone who's not in the theater comes up to me and says, "You've changed my life."
Wow.
And that to me is like, okay, then that's the reason why I wrote that play.
In the Tammy Ryan story, first of all, who would play you, do you think?
Maybe Ed Harris's wife. What's her name?
Ed Harris's wife.
Yeah.
I'm looking for like an A-lister here. Are we going for Ed Harris's wife?
She's a famous actress. I can't remember her name now. God,
someone's Googling it. They already know, yeah.
So I sort of like to write about, strong, uncompromising women. So Molly Tammer would fit in that category.
Do you consider yourself a strong, uncompromising woman?
You will have to ask my husband, the controller, about that. Edward Albee would talk about being with play and walking along the beach and imagining the whole play in his head, and then he would just write it with no revisions.
I like that.
I don't believe that, but if my plays are done badly or not right, they can be like melodrama, but there's room for that in opera. It expands
and you can overact horribly and get away with it. That's why I love opera.
It's great. It's great.
That's why opera's employed me from time to time.
Or I'll make a residency at home.
There you go.
I have a big dry erase board in there where everybody's schedule's on there, and I'll put like a big red boundary. Okay, this is when mommy is writing. Okay, don't bother her. You have to cook. You have to clean. You have to. That doesn't always work as well.
Well, cheers to that.
Okay.
As a matter of fact.